Alright, hello everybody, my name is Viera-ramos, and today we are talking about the sequel to a video I made 4 years ago. Or at least 5. No, but mainly a couple of years ago. Addressing what caused the Great Recession of the 2000s, but I wasn't so surface level though. So we're gonna be dealing with it, so you don't have to. Okay. Number 1. Housing bubble plus unsustainable real estate boom is one of the causes, which it happened with. In the early 2000s, housing prices rose rapidly in the US as demand exploded, fueled by easy credit and lax lending standards, which created a property bubble. When that bubble burst, home values dropped sharply and many owners found themselves owing more than their homes were worth, meaning underwater. And we could also blame 9/11. Now, reason number 2. Subprime mortgages and risky lending practices. Banks granted mortgages to high-risk borrowers, aka subprimes, or subprime, often with adjustable rate mortgages. As interest rates rose or housing values fell, many of those borrowers couldn't keep up payments, leading to widespread default and foreclosures. Number 3. Securitization and complex financial instruments, MBS, CDOs, and derivatives. Those risky mortgages were bundled into mortgage-backed securities, or MBS for short, and collateralized debt obligations, or CDOs. Then sold to investors globally. Many of these products were poorly understood and underassessed for risk. When defaults rose, the value of all those securities collapsed, triggering massive losses. Number 4. Excessive leverage by financial firms and investors. Banks, investment firms, and investors borrowed heavily high leverage to purchase those mortgage-linked securities. Leverage magnified profits, but also magnified losses when housing prices dropped and defaults surged, making institutions extremely vulnerable. Now, dependence on fragile short-term funding and the shadow banking system. Many non-traditional financial institutions, not regular banks, relied heavily on short-term borrowing, like, for example, overnight markets, repos, rather than stable long-term deposits. When confidence evaporated, these funding sources dried up like hard, causing a liquidity crunch that amplified the crisis. Number 6, though, is failures in regulation, oversight, and supervision. Regulators and supervisory agencies failed to keep up with the rapid growth of risky lending, securitization, and financial innovations. As a result, many risky practices and opaque financial products remained underregulated and unchecked. The 7th reason: poor corporate governance and risk management in financial institutions. Many large financial firms underestimated risk, mispriced assets, and managed capital poorly. The combination of greed, overly optimistic assumptions, and bad internal controls allowed dangerously risky behavior to go unchecked. Number 8 is loose monetary policy and low interest rate. In the early 2000s, central banks lowered interest rates, making borrowing cheap. That encouraged home buying and helped inflate the housing bubble. Low rates made mortgages and loans widely accessible. even to many who couldn't realistically sustain them long term. Now, number 9. Global financial interconnectedness and international capital flows. Because financial markets were highly globalized, risky U.S. mortgages and related securities were held by banks and investors worldwide. When the crisis hit U.S. housing and mortgage markets, losses spread rapidly across global financial systems, turning a U.S.-centric housing collapse into a worldwide recession. Alright, the 10th and final cause of the Great Recession of the 2000s were triggering a credit crunch and widespread economic fallout. As defaults and foreclosures grew, asset prices fell and many financial institutions faced insolvency or massive losses. Confidence in lending evaporated, banks stopped issuing new loans, consumers cut spending, leading to a vicious downward spiral. Less lending means less spending, means job losses, means deeper recession. This raises a question, why it mattered? Well, why it mattered with the cascading failures and systemic risk is also many causes. Financial system fragility. Because so many banks and institutions were interconnected via risky securities and borrowed heavily, the collapse of housing-linked assets triggered a chain reaction, leading to collapse or near collapses of major banks. Credit freeze and economic contradiction. With credit markets frozen and lending curtailed, consumers and businesses could no longer borrow or spend, which reduced investments led to layoffs, lower demand, and a sharp economic downturn. Also, global spread. Because global investors and banks were tied in the U.S., mortgage-backed securities, the shock quickly propagated worldwide, turning a U.S. housing meltdown into a global recession. I already mentioned that. And also long-term impact. These culminated in massive job losses, decline in household wealth, reduced consumer spending, tighter regulation post-crisis, loss of trust in financial institutions and markets. So this has been Kendrick Viera-Ramos. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe.
Oh! Are they making out? Oh, let's go! Kiss him! Kiss him!
So what's he gonna do? Oh!
He's pulling his cock out!
I don't know. Wait.